Hello, Friday for me. I'll do this presentation and try and shut up over the weekend and leave it with you so you can think about it and note some comments. It's a bit of a recap about some of the stuff that we've been through, and I think that quite a lot of it is quite radical. So it needs poking at by you lot. It all, we've been through hundreds of hours together. So you've seen what's been going on in here, because it comes out every day. So you'll be able to note where I have not been thinking clearly and be able to point it out to me. So let's go through a couple of these things. People, households, top of this one. This is my aid memoir I'm going through. People and households. It's finite. When they borrow from a bank, they have to ultimately pay it back, preferably before they die. Do you get the idea? They borrow from a bank and they have to pay it back before they die. That's the principle for people and households. Small companies, kind of finite. Brackets here is kind of finite. They generally borrow from banks. A bank might lend to a mom and pop store, a small corner shop, because it might be handed over to the children, but it's a bit iffy. They'd prefer to be lending to the people as opposed to the store. Bigger companies sell their own bonds. They kind of deal in a different market, a different money market. Local government is really infinite, because you think your local government's going to always be there, and they sell bonds like the big corporations do. Central government, again, infinite, and they sell bonds, but then that's iffy as well. They do not sell bonds like the local government sell bonds. The local government sell bonds because they have to. And why do they have to? They have to because central government tells them that they do have to. Yeah? Central government says the central bank is ours to play with us, not with you. So you have to keep yourself funded like a company, corporation, household. Sort yourself out. I don't want to go too deeply into the MMT of this again. The economy is transactions. I think we're all happy with that. Well, when I say it's not that controversial, it's not that radical. Transactions intermediated by money tokens. Money tokens are, using the thing again, if you can't, other people that are just doing audio, I am sprinkling money from either MMT, central government, or banks lending it. I'm sprinkling it into the economy. And they're just the tokens which are to intermediate the transactions of the people, which is making the economy. Too much money in the hands of the people can lead to bubbles and inflation. Too much money in the hands of people can lead to bubbles and inflation. That's perfectly normal, but we're kind of trying to understand it from what I'm saying point of view. Some increase in transaction activity will ensue. Too much money, the too much is a bit, because you never know what's too much. But if there's a bubble, maybe that shows that there is too much, and that is probably part of an increase in transaction activity. Not directly, not generally always bad. It's a bit iffy, that one. But too little money is a lot more differenter. In the hands of the people, that's too little money in the hands of the people can lead to depressions. Too little money in the hands of the people can lead to depressions. Too much money, and you've got more options. You've got the options to spend, do nothing, save, You've got options, but when you've got too little money, your options are reduced. And when your options are reduced, as a person, you're more unhappy and less likely to transact. Decrease in transaction activity due to too little money. Too little money is well serious directly. Too much money is a bit, well, other things will happen. The people pull the money into the money token supply. That's a bit of a dodgy one, depending on where we're going with the MMT and the government putting the money out there. But generally, the government will do putting extra money out there because they think the people want it. Or the people are going to banks and borrowing the extra money. The people pull the money into the money supply. It isn't kind of thrown out there by central banks or, right, let's move on to the next one. People as householders. Now, this is vaguely interesting when we want to predict what's going to happen in the future. People as householders, people, this is people thinking of themselves as householders, small company workers or small company owners, big company workers or local government workers working for the local government, all of that lot, all people, generally, all people, whatever their place in life, even CEOs of big corporations, think central government has to run like they do. It's just one of those psychology people thing. It's just easier for people to work it out that way, probably. If you're a household, you think that the government should work like a household. If you're a small company, you think the central government should balance its books. If you're a big corporation, you think, well, it can afford to borrow here as long as it invests correctly, etc. That's the way the people think. The people think that the big central government thing should act like they do. And this leads central government running its accounts like it was some sort of a corporation. And they don't even ask how else they could run. The central government could run their own accounts. They just run it like that because all the people they interact with all are telling them different ways that they should run their accounts, but they're all pretty much the same because they're on that side. They're either from local government, big corporations, small government, small company, CBI type people, or private householders say this is the way you should do it. So there's just no other ideas out there because you've got government, very small percent, and everybody else, and the everybody else is telling government what to do. So we can't expect government to do anything but react in some way, which is to act like a household, a small company, a big company, or a local government. They will do that. Right, what have we got here? Workers that make things. Okay, this one. Now, this I thought more people would have commented in and shouted at me. Workers that make things are no more important to an economy that does not need imports than a worker who does not make things. That's the car workers, just the same as a care worker. In an economy, in a sealed economy, as soon as you want imports come in, say you want oil from another country, then selling a car is much more likely to get you the foreign currency you need to buy the oil than a manicurist is liable to get you foreign currency so you can import your oil. But for the actual sealed economy, there is no difference between the two. So we get, because this is more direct to people that I am starting to get exceptionally bored with, the government widget inspector, the government, and a government worker, government widget inspector is just as important to the economy as the widget maker. Have I not put it there directly? Yeah, all this, the government widget inspector's wages is paid by the widget maker. It sounds like it should be right. And that's where I would have started when I started all this, looking into economics things, because it sounds right. But I've found no evidence of it at all. It sounds right, but when you look into it, it's wrong. The who does what, as in who does what work, like whether somebody becomes a widget maker or a widget government widget inspector or a manicurist or a car maker, is divided between two things. Market forces, as in if nobody wants to make cars, it's boring. Eventually, car makers will offer more wages until the extra wages will override the boredom of it all, or whatever it might be. If there's a great demand for manicurists, but there's no manicurists in the region, in the area, there soon will be manicurists in the region. And on the other side is government choices via taxes. The government takes taxes in, and this is a very strange thing, this taxes. I could have done a whole thing on taxes, but I'm not going to. I'm going to resist talking about taxes. But taxes are useful for lots of things. It basically gives the government the excuse to do a lot of messing about. So the who does what, like how many should be in the army, how many government widget inspectors should there be. The government gets away with doing that via taxes as a kind of a cover. But those are the ways that who does what is divided up in the economy. Market forces and government choices. And government choices is via taxes and market forces via wages. Or demand, supply and demand. Now, it can be said, well, the government doesn't allocate these things efficiently. The market does. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that much. If the government allocates grotesquely badly, sack the fucking government. Get a new one in that does it properly. Yeah. If you think there are 5 inspectors coming in every single day to inspect you making widgets, well, it doesn't happen, because the market forces of people going, this is sodding ridiculous, eventually overwhelm that. And it just doesn't happen. In other words, yes, government is quite liable to allocate the tax money stupidly, but not wildly stupidly. And if it is wildly stupid and they're not voted out of office, that's the people's fault. But it won't be that wildly off, and even if it is that wildly off, it really doesn't matter that much at all either. This is another thing that I've kind of think that I've found over this inspection of economics that I've done. The great lassitude, the great wobbliness in these things is due to most things not really being that important. And I think it's because of money that just gives it all this wobble. It really doesn't matter in an economy what people do to a greater extent. The economy can be grotesquely wrong and it doesn't fall over, because it's kind of self-balancing. As soon as it gets, it really is looking stupid, people do something about it. It really never gets that too far wrong. Yeah. And that's why huge naughty economic type things don't really go wrong. We've had one from 2008, but it's starting to right itself now as well. It was a big thing but it was very hidden, and it's quite understandable how it got itself out of control. But I don't think it's the end of the world. The economy, people transacting, is in their heads, basically. If the people are unhappy, you've got an unhappy economy. I'm not saying it's all psychological. Their heads might be in their purses, in their wallets, in their pocketbooks. Or it may not. In 2006, people were in debt all over the place, but spending money all over the place. Their money, their actual financial situation was dire, but they didn't care. But now their financial situation is dire and they do care. It all goes, all the economy and transactions, whether they will or not be transacted, are all coming through people's heads. And yeah, it's based on, it could be based on fact, like how much money they've got, but sometimes it isn't. Like, as I say, the complete difference between how people felt 6 years ago in 2006, when the financial position was similarly stupid, but they spend wildly. And now, not so much. And quick one on the US, UK and EU. The US and UK governments have been spending just about the same percentage of deficits over the last 5 years. The US has been going on, I bet you all know roughly how big the US deficits are. Huge $1 trillion deficits. Do you know how big the UK ones are? No, because the UK goes on about austerity that it's doing. It's not. It's spending money just like the US government is, but it's talking austerity. That gets into the people's heads. And the EU now is doing the same. And that they're doing two lots of things. They're not just talking austerity, they're actually doing austerity. And we go up to whatever it was, number 2. You reduce the amount of money that's out there, and it does lead to a depression, really. The people's heads will be in their pocketbook, and they will not transact. And all sorts of stuff like that. So your comments, please, or I'll just go on and on thinking this sort of stuff. Bye.